Берлин, Париж, Лондон, Брюссель готовы гореть от ударов наших ракет? А если понадобится, от использования тактического ядерного оружия?
These are the words of one of Russia's chief propagandists, Vladimir Solovyov. Like Vladimir Putin and Russian officials, he often invokes the threat of using nuclear weapons.
И мы как мученики попадем в рай, а они просто сдохнут.
Could Vladimir Putin push the red button during the war with Ukraine? What would happen in the event of a nuclear war? Hi, my name is Tikhon Dzyadko and you are watching the TVRay Newsroom channel. Let's travel back in time to the very recent past, August 6th, 1945. It's almost 9 o'clock in the morning in Hiroshima, Japan. 3 days later, the American armed forces dropped a second atomic bomb on Nagasaki. What did the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki look like? Tens of thousands of people died instantly. Buildings turned to ash. The resulting shockwave in Nagasaki traveled at 2 kilometers per second, sweeping away everything in its path. The exact death toll is unknown, but is in the tens and hundreds of thousands. Of the survivors, countless suffered from radiation-induced illness. At the end of the World War II, the United States was the only country that possessed nuclear weapons. Moscow did not want to fall behind. The Soviet Union was working hard to develop its own weapons, and by 1949, its tests were successful. Thus began the arms race, forming a large part of the Cold War between the two superpowers. This is a representative snapshot of that time. School children are taught to hide under their desks. At that moment, there was active talk of a new possible war with apocalyptic weapons. As scientist Albert Einstein famously said, "I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." That fear is back again today. The world is closer than ever to nuclear war, a world in which many more countries possess nuclear weapons. The traditional nuclear powers today are the United States, Russia, the United Kingdom, France and China. North Korea, India and Pakistan now also possess these capabilities. Israel is also considered a non-official nuclear power. To go deeper into the subject, we need to explain that nuclear weapons are divided into tactical and strategic weapons. Tactical nuclear weapons are, to put it simply, less powerful. It is assumed that they can be used on the battlefield without large-scale radioactive contamination. In contrast, strategic nuclear weapons are much more powerful and are intended to be used over long distances. How many nuclear warheads do nuclear countries have? This question can only be answered approximately. Russia has a total of almost 6,000 nuclear warheads. NATO countries have a little less when combined. China is in third place with 350. Even before the invasion of Ukraine, Vladimir Putin ordered Russia's nuclear strategic forces to be placed on special alert and conducted practice exercises. During the course of the war with Ukraine, it has been a point of serious concern around the world that President Putin might push the red button to use tactical nuclear weapons, which have never been used.
При угрозе территориальной целостности нашей страны, для защиты России и нашего народа мы, безусловно, используем все имеющиеся в нашем распоряжении средства. Это не блеф.
Russia's military doctrine states that nuclear weapons can be used not only in response, but also, quote, when the very existence of its state is threatened. Pundits on Russian TV discuss how long it would take for Russian missiles to reach European capitals. Here, for example, Russian propagandist Dmitry Kiselyov claims that Russia is capable of submerging Britain underwater overnight. Kiselyov was responding to a non-existent quote by then British Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
Мы сейчас наготове. Зачем грозить ядерным оружием бескрайней России, сидя на, в общем-то, маленьком острове? Остров столь мал, что лишь одной ракеты «Сармат» достаточно, чтобы его утопить раз и навсегда. Это всего лишь один пуск, Борис. А Англии нет. Раз и навсегда. Зачем заигрываться? Другой вариант – погрузить Британию в морскую пучину российский подводный робот-беспилотник «Посейдон». Взрыв этой термоядерной торпеды у берегов Британии поднимет гигантскую волну, цунами высотой до 500 метров. Такой водяной шквал является еще и носителем экстремальных доз радиации. Пройдя над Британскими островами, он превратит то, что от них, может быть, еще и останется, в радиоактивную пустыню, надолго непригодную хоть для чего-то. И как перспектива, а ведь Путин предупреждал, еще 24 февраля.
Such a strike, as we understand, would not go unanswered by the Allies. Therefore, if Russia is considering the possibility of using nuclear weapons, they are talking about tactical nuclear weapons. Experts have called the statements of Russian officials nuclear blackmail.
Теперь несколько важных, очень важных слов для тех, у кого может возникнуть соблазн со стороны вмешаться в происходящее событие. Кто бы ни пытался помешать нам, а тем более создать угрозы для нашей страны, для нашего народа, должны знать, что ответ России будет незамедлительным и приведет вас к таким последствиям, с которыми вы в своей истории еще никогда не сталкивались. Мы готовы к любому развитию событий. Все необходимые в этой связи решения приняты. Надеюсь, что я буду услышан.
Putin, on the other hand, claims that it is in fact NATO countries are guilty of this, even if this is how the American president addresses the issue.
Don't. It will change the face of war, unlike anything since World War II.
Fear of escalation from Moscow may be holding back Western countries from more actively supporting Ukraine and supplying more serious long-range weapons. But what would happen if Putin did really push the red button?
We need to have some public debate and explanation of what Russian nuclear weapon employment might actually be. What would it be? It's not going to be like end of the world thermonuclear strategic weapons. It's something much lower than that. And so I think there's got to be a way to describe this since it has such an impact on decision.
This is a bluff, first and foremost. And secondly, he has perhaps a few dozens of nuclear weapons which are still operational. And even then, he has a chain of command of 20 people between him and the final trigger puller. Every one of them has to agree with his decision to deploy a nuclear weapon. He's not going to risk this. So what is he doing? He's bluffing because every time he mentions nuclear, just that word, everybody in the West is going, "Oh."
What would be the response? Would there be any response at all? The White House has made clear that there would be consequences, and Joe Biden has said that the US Ministry of Defense has a plan for the situation. Representatives of his administration say that they have given the Kremlin a clear and precise warning on this matter. The NATO Secretary General has also said that Russia would face dire consequences without going into specific detail. US intelligence claimed in spring that Putin was now unlikely to use nuclear weapons, a statement echoed by many experts.
And by the way, I don't believe the Russians would actually use it. The second thing is, I think there's some concern that once Crimea is liberated, that it would unleash so much chaos on the Russian side, and people are not sure what does that look like, what would happen, and so they're not able to comprehend yet what would happen with a breakup of the Russian Federation, or if there was some cataclysmic change in Moscow. And so there's uncertainty about that. And I think some people are nervous about it. And then the third reason, perhaps, and all of this is me, just my own speculation. China has a role here somewhere. I think that the Chinese have probably said they would not want to see a total collapse of the Russian Federation, at least not in a catastrophic way. That would have global implications that would affect them also. So perhaps Beijing has communicated this to the White House, but I don't know that.
There is another deterrent factor: China, an ally of Moscow who does not support the use of absolute weapons. Western sources suggest that Xi Jinping personally warned Vladimir Putin of the unacceptability of a nuclear strike, even if the Kremlin claims this is a fabrication. Nevertheless, this January, scientists moved the so-called doomsday clock forward 10 seconds. There are now 90 seconds left until midnight, which symbolized nuclear catastrophe. Not even during the Cold War was the hand so close to the moment of humanity's destruction.